This is the After Party. Your hosts are The Great Order and No White Guilt. The crown winner of last week is Iraq Syndrome, financially gifting $80. Thank you so very much, dear brother, and congratulations to you. In second place, another big congratulations and gratitude to Joseph for financially gifting $50 US. Thank you so very much, Joseph, as well. Financially gift on Entropy at a cost of 15% to you, which will be up in just a moment, where you can also watch the stream. And remember that there is a question widget over there where you can ask questions and make comments, and they don't disappear unless you or I delete them. You can also upvote questions you like to ensure that they get answered. Jared and I evenly share the financial gifts with our guests on the after party. And of course, don't forget about down there in the description, not only will you find Entropy, but you will also find Cash App as an option. Today, we have the astounding Yizz on tap with us. Yizz, please introduce yourself to our esteemed community for the few who may not know who you are. And of course, all of the new folks out there, tell them where they can find you. And then Mr. George will open the treasure chest of this conversation.
Well, hello. Thank you so much for having me again. It's been a while since I've been on in an official capacity. And my name is Yizz. Yizz the Eunuch is the channel name. You can find me by the same name, Odyssey, Library, YouTube, Trovo, DLive, soon to Twitch. And I recently was nuked off Twitter, but you can find someone who is similar to me on Twitter by the name of @NotYizz. So some of you might have encountered that squirrely person. You can find me at the same name over on Minds and Gab, and I have my own Telegram at Yizz the Eunuch Open Forum. All of these you can find on my About tab here on YouTube. Excuse me, on my About tab here on YouTube. If you want to contact me directly, you can do through any of those means. And I also have an email, yizztheeunuch@protonmail.com. Anything else you want me to talk about, or is that enough for the opening here?
That's enough, sweet sister. Mr. George, how are you, brother?
I'm good. And we do have a few more things we want to talk about in general. So I'll start you off with this. First of all, thank you for having me on your show last week. There's a lot of activity all of a sudden.
Yeah.
You were a wonderful host this last week, and I appreciate that. We had a wonderful talk for anyone that wants to go check that out. And I know you've spoken to Jason on Going Free. You've showed up to his Sunday stream. And Jason and I were like, well, we could have these this week. Why not? You were on my mind. You and I were hot off of our talk, and things are flowing well. Good, great chemistry. I felt like there was a lot more to talk about.
Definitely.
And just to shill something quickly, funny enough, just the way that the cookie crumbled is you and your co-host, Kizza, tomorrow are going to be on Learning in Public with me and John Bruce Leonard. So you kind of get a back-to-back, a double header here.
Oh, yeah.
Specifically because Kizza has an interesting methodology he's working out called the Mirror of Veritas. He is an engineer, so he's putting his engineering mind to this idea about more accountability for public figures, the ideas people spread, the policies that politicians enact. I think that's going to square very interestingly with John's knowledge of the ancient world and their concepts of virtue and justice. So that'll be tomorrow at noon Eastern, 5 UK. But you're here now. This is Tap. Now. So your first time on Tap, we always like to get to know people. So we'll get into some different things, but just generally, what would you like to share about why you ended up in these spheres and talking to people like Jason and I? We know that you are active in several spheres, which we're curious to talk about and very happy to talk about later, because Jason and I very strongly feel there needs to be more synergy and outreach amongst different kinds of folks with different perspectives who might
Definitely.
certain pieces of the story, but not other pieces. And we have to be good representatives, good advocates. You are extremely energetic online and off in that, and we'll get to those details. But first, just as the prologue,
Sure.
What brought you here?
Well, there's a lot to say because I'm old. So it was a long way getting here.
We have time.
I'm a passionate American, And I've had to go through a lot of hard things for several reasons I don't want to get into. Everybody's got their own sad story, but a lot of my problems came from aberrant biology and were made worse by an abusive father. As the two of you and probably most of the viewers know, I'm intersex, and I had developmental issues that led to health problems and eventually having to have surgery to fix what was wrong inside me. And that's why I chose the playful moniker eunuch. Not only does that anger the certain agenda that wanted to weaponize me, but it also shows that I don't have anything to hide, and I put my cards on the table because when I'm speaking about truth and wanting to connect to people for real things, I don't want anyone to think that I pretend to be something I'm not. So that's why I chose that moniker. Because being different made my developmental years and gender itself a real challenge, I was an easy target in high school and college by the anti-whites who call themselves the four letters. And thankfully, I was raised right and have a good head on my shoulders. So even though their lies and manipulations affected me a lot more than I wish they would have up into my 20s, I mostly rejected their mind poison and didn't become part of the tribe, so to speak. Being a person who enjoys giving back to a community and helping others with wisdom, making healthy life choices and stuff, I've always been active in local community things. Over a decade ago, I moved out of Appalachia, which is where I live now, and I moved southwest for work. And I spent nearly 9 years in a really large city in the Southwest in the desert. During that time, I discovered how my rural area in Appalachia was decades behind the anti-white cancer compared to this awful city I moved to. And I did all that I could to combat the anti-whites there in the city's systems, in the local university, in the hospital that I worked at, the clinics I worked at, especially battling those that call themselves socialists, call themselves feminists, call themselves the four letters activists. And that culminated in me losing my work, losing my community, all but one of my friends. And due to the various attacks and threats on me, including having my car destroyed, I decided to leave the city and just give up. So I moved back to Appalachia a couple years ago to take care of my aging family and my mother's unwell husband, my husband's unwell mother, who just recently passed away. I didn't come to racial consciousness and white positivity through antique nationalism or having a traumatic experience at the hands of a violent non-white. My decades of experiences in the city my decade of experiences in the city I lived in opened my eyes to how media, education, and government were all complicit in the lies about everything bad being white people's fault, and both whites and non-whites were openly wielding white guilt as a weapon against me and my loved ones. It was like a simple shepherd discovering Sodom and Gomorrah for the first time. It was a huge culture shock that rocked me to the core, and I developed a strong need to right the wrongs I saw in the world around me, especially my own country, America. And that led me to nationalism and patriotic networking, speaking, activism, which ultimately led me to the White Wellbeing community a little over a year ago. And there it is.
Well, thank you for that. And thank you for having the real courage, not the kind of fake stuff that you said is used as this show, but actual courage, and to tell what you're saying here. And Jason and I, of course, welcome you with open arms, because we in this community here have, hopefully, we all have things to work out, but we have our heads on our shoulders as well.
I appreciate that.
Is there anything you'd like to say about the fact you alluded to something? So since you mentioned it, I'll ask, and like anything today, whatever is appropriate and comfortable to talk about.
Okay.
You did allude to the fact that certain groups with certain worldviews, anti-white worldviews usually, like to court, as you said, people who might fall into situations like yours, and use you as kind of this avatar for how open-minded they are, but really they're using people like you as a tool to kind of bludgeon in these other agendas that kind of get society off foundations, as we discuss here often. Anything you'd like to talk about that, and contrasting to what you have found since coming here?
Well, yeah, I'd like to point out that the alphabet mafia and the anti-whites around them that call themselves various things, they pulled me in with the lies of acceptance and equality and all of these other lies that they spin. I'm from a very backwards rural Christian area, but me being different and being born with gender and anatomical oddities, it was hard for me But the Christians and the people in my rural area, they didn't abuse me or beat me or anything for those reasons. My abusive father aside, my life experiences here in the middle of nowhere out in the woods, I mean, yeah, I'm different, but like when you come from hillbilly folk, everybody's got somebody weird in the family, but we all take care of each other. And, you know, we all look after our own, and at school and at church and at the communities and stuff. Like, I was allowed to go hunting with people and go fishing and go to church and all that. I was never some kind of active degenerate that promoted ugly things or unchristlike things that made ugly waves where I lived. So when I went to this big city and well, first my first encounter with these people was when I went to art school about an hour away from where I grew up. And that's the local state university that I battled the last year, which we might talk about later. But when I started growing through my 20s, people that were part of these anti-whites that call themselves these various things, they started courting me and wanting me to be involved in what I now know to call leftist activism. They wanted me, since I had genetic and gender/sexual oddities, they want to utilize people like me to be some kind of chocolate coated pill, like when you got to give your dog medicine and you cover it in peanut butter. They want to use people like me that have real legitimate problems to shoehorn in anti-male sexualizing children nonsense and use people like me as, oh, hey, look, this is a legitimate problem. Now let us get into your school and into your hospital and into your clinic and fill it full of all this anti-Western ideological nonsense. And it took me a few years to realize what was really going on, because most of the people that were talking to me, they didn't know what was going on. They were just weaponized idiots. And thankfully, I got a good head on my shoulders and I realized what was going on. And so moving out to the Southwest, I didn't know how bad it was until I started trying to work there, where the anti-whites that call themselves socialists and the anti-whites that call themselves the alphabet mafia, they literally ran everything. The hospital, the university, the insurance that I had was ran by these same anti-whites. And it was like, I immediately found myself in hostile territory where just speaking my mind denied me promotions. It put me at risk, sometimes physical risk. And Jason's nodding his head because he knows exactly the kind of risk and the problems I'm talking about, because you worked in Washington. You know how when you go to a place and the establishment is completely riddled with these anti-white jackals, you can't even get off the dime without stepping in a bear trap. And that's what it was like for me there. And it was just, the whole decade was just like trying to ice skate uphill while on fire.
That's quite an image. You're a poet.
So that was quite the eye-opening experience to realize that they lie about good old-timey Southern Baptist people and the hillbillies and mountain folk. They act like we're all just evil and abuse each other and we have no values, when really I can't speak to all the anti-whites that call themselves socialists or alphabet activists, but it's like 100% projection with them. Everything that they villainized my people and my religion and all the things that I came from, everything they said that my people and my background was, they were guilty of. And it was just really, it was really hard trying to go up against that and have a career and build a family and try to even keep a job. Because when I spoke the truth and tried to get people to divorce medical problems and psychological issues from different hormonal developmental problems and challenges people have to intersex conditions like mine that people have, people that get sexually abused when they're young, these people need real help from actual medical professionals. And that's what my job was in. I worked with autistic and abused adults. I was a nurse for a while. And because of my particular oddity, I went and spoke at medical institutes, at universities, to talk to psychologists and psychiatrists to let them know about my personal experiences having a strange genetic sex oddity, just to let them know that this is what I existed as. This is the medical attention that I got back in the 80s and the 90s. And this is why insurance needs to cover this. And my platform was, but you have to divorce it from the alphabet mafia, from all of these anti-white ideas, from these politics, because they want to weaponize me and policies and insurance and education and healthcare to legitimize the evils that they want to spread. And just saying those words to people, I rapidly started being denied community. I stopped being offered places to speak. And it just was, like I said, like ice skating uphill. It was terrible.
And so what was the process that then led you out of those spheres and towards what you're doing now and what we know you for, what you're so active in, and we will speak about those activities in a little while.
Well, what led me to you guys was finally everything disintegrated for me about 5 years ago in the city that I was in. And I still suffer from depression because when you try to build something for half your life and you literally see the entire world against you, and it's like, do you know what the term gaslighting means? It comes from a play. It was every day I was being gaslit, being told I was evil. I was an evil oppressor because I was white. I was an evil, they call you all the words in the book, all the boogeyman words in the anti-white narrative, because I cared about the truth. I cared about values. I cared about the nuclear family. And I cared about children not being lied to and manipulated like I was by these jackals. And I wanted that, I wanted that to be known to the hospitals and the clinics and the people that I worked with and spoke to, that there are people like me that these jackals will lie about and say that, oh, well, because of this one person, you need to legitimize all of this degenerate filth. And because I spoke out against it, I had to go. Like Jason says, you can never be anti-white enough for these anti-white people. It doesn't matter. Like, I could have kissed the ring 100 times. It never would have been enough, and they would eventually found something to crucify me over. So I just decided, well, if this is the hill I'm going to die on, I'm going to go down swinging. So I did, until I basically was physically ran out of town. I lost my community. I lost everything. A couple of anti-whites even smashed up my car once. And it was not good. And like usual, you get the usual threats from the idiots. Not that I thought any of the death or rape threats I got were legitimate. They all come from weak-willed morons that just, they send you PMs and email and stuff. They started circulating rumors about me being this horrible person that abused animals and all this other nonsense, just trying to smear me and destroy me in every way they could, demoralize me. They started calling my family, telling them lies, saying that, oh, I saw Yizz out so-and-so the other night. She was doing heroin with somebody and blah, blah, blah. And like, it was just the amount of depravity and evil that was lumped upon me and my loved ones just because I cared about truth and real values of family and protecting children and stuff. It's unreal what you have to go up against in these horrible anti-white cities. It is almost unimaginable unless you've experienced it.
Mm. So you had the instinct, your compass was always good. I hear you speak a lot about family, about how everything kind of radiates out of the family. And so much of what we do is to keep that intact, or to help people who heal their own lives so that they can be parts of families now.
Can you say that last part again? It cut out.
Yeah, someone's saying my mic is muffling again. I don't know.
No, it's on my end. I have spotty internet because I tell everybody I'm on hillbilly internet, remember? Every once in a while it'll hiccup a little bit and I'll miss a couple seconds. I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. No, someone in the chat said it as well. This happened the other day. I don't know if my mic is too loud and clipping. I moved it a little bit away from me right now. Let me know, everyone, how it sounds. No, it's just that you speak a lot about the family. As I heard you on another stream recently saying how even the people out there that don't think about this as much as we do, they're not as aware, they're not quite political, although I don't really consider myself political, but where at least I have to be aware of certain things because of being involved in what I'm involved in and being a public voice. But your idea is that from your experiences everywhere that you've traveled, that really, and this is an in that we have, is even through all the horrible indoctrination, there's still in many people, the core of the core and the heart of the heart is that we care about our loved ones and we care about our families. And the more that people start to feel that the screws are being tightened against the well-being of our families, all of this indoctrination, even though it's 24/7 nonstop in mainstream education and media, might very well fall apart like the house of cards that it is. Do you have anything to add to that? I just know that you speak very passionately about that.
I do, and I'm hopeful because even in the anti-white city that I was in for so long, most of the white people that were not from that city, they saw the same evils that I did because they had to go up against it. And behind closed doors and privately to me, they would ally with me, but they saw me getting crucified. So I don't want to hate them for being cowards, but imagine if the 100 or 200 people I worked with and knew, what if they put their foot down too? And they stood up and said what I said? Maybe we could have made a difference, but they didn't. And I got tired of it. Like, but it still gives me hope that enough people know what's going on. And especially with all that happened last year, and I know the ear's at the door, so I'm not going to say specifics, but with all that we saw happen last year, with the completely official and wonderful, beautiful election that Biden totally won, with all of the completely peaceful and positive protests that we saw in all the cities that we saw, I know from traveling to several different places, going to DC, getting busy in my local area last year, people are talking about this. Regular folks that have families, regular people are talking about this, and they see the anti-white narrative. They feel weaponized white guilt. I just have to give them the language tools, because that's what language is. It's a toolbox. So I'm very encouraged that what we're doing is going to matter, because I see it currently mattering in my life with what I do and how I talk to people.
Yeah. So you've painted a picture about the instinct that you had. It sounds like your compass was always pointed in the right direction. You tried to do your best to keep things kind of on the right path in the professional experience that you had and the contacts and networks that you were in, and they rejected you. They attacked you. More than rejected you, they attacked you. So then take us through the steps of how you ended up in the more traditional, positive, white well-being, working for Westernkind, working for the rehabilitation of the West circles like ours that you're now so active in.
About 2.5 years ago, I wanted to start putting my ideas out there to try to build a community around. My first video was called Liberty and Justice for All. Let's explore that and find out what that means, because I found myself being denied all of those things by the anti-white narrative for years. And it seemed like everyone in a position of power, both government and business, wanted to deprive everyone who was like me of liberty and justice for all of us. And so that led me through talking to the usual political guys, talking to the usual, whatever you want to call them, the online pundit crew who talk about everything from politics to government to philosophy and all of that. And about 1.5 years ago, I wanted to deeply explore people who cared about racial consciousness and white people as an oppressed group. And I discovered Patriotic Alternative. I discovered several other people. I learned about millennial woes. I learned about the different communities of people that have been speaking for a very long time about white people being persecuted. And I learned about what was going on in South Africa intimately. I learned about a lot of things. And about 1 year and 2 months ago, before I started listening to to Mark Collette's weekly show, one of the creators that I know, Academic Agent, the one who Jared referenced me talking to on his Friday stream a week or so ago, he said, if you're looking to learn more about nationalism and this kind of stuff, there's Mark Collette, there's the No White Guilt guy who goes on about his No White Guilt, Go Free stuff. And I said, it clicked in my head immediately. I said, No White Guilt? Hey, I like the sound of that. And I immediately went and looked that guy up. And I was like, hey, that's a catchy thing. I like that. So I looked up Jason and I was like, oh, hey, I was getting ready to go watch Mark Collette and explore him anyway. And he's going to be on a Wednesday show with him. And then I found out that Jason was the co-host. And that was about 1 year and 2 months ago. And from there, I immediately dove into the Go Free streams on Sunday and was like, I like what this guy's laying down. This fits what I want to do, because I don't want to just talk online, and I don't just want to raise a family or build a bunker and live out in the middle of nowhere. I want to make a difference, but I want to do it in a holistic, natural way where I'm still a part of everyday life. I don't want to be some weird radical or brand myself with terms or anti-nationalist stuff or any of these other things that put you on lists or make you seem like a weirdo to normal people, because we need to be normal people. Like this whole concept of talking about normie this and normie that, you got to cut that stuff out, because you want everyone around you that you talk to think, hey, you're a normal person saying cool stuff I identify with. I like that stuff. I'm a normal person too. I'm going to start saying anti-white. I'm going to say no white guilt. And I just started doing that in my daily life and at church and with people around me, and it started working. And so I was like, well, I'm going to buy this guy Jason's book. And I read Go Free almost exactly 1 year ago. I think I ordered it at the end of last March, I think. I don't know. Jason might have the details on that. I don't remember. But it was around a year ago. I read the book and I was like, this is really smart. This concept of meme curative, meme pathogen, what these things are. For people like me who want to dive more into it, this is a wonderful book to have, to tell people to learn from. But to keep things simple, which is another thing that you wanted to talk to me about, Jared, was my simplistic approach is to simply divert every conversation at least a little bit to get the word anti-white or anti-whiteism in, and let everyone I talk to know white guilt, weaponized white guilt, is at the core of all these problems. And it's very easy to do. Mm. A lot of times, all you have to talk about are the peaceful protests of last year. You talk about the obvious white erasure in comic books, cartoons, video games, movies, and all of that people know. You talk about what's going on in their local government that they see. You talk about mass migration and how that's affecting people. And I talk to people, especially those people that have kids at church. I talk to them about the anti-white encroachment into the curriculum, into what they're being taught. And all I have to do is broach those normal subjects. And then at some point in the casual conversation, I say, isn't it awful how they just weaponize white guilt? Or isn't it just terrible how they put white guilt into your kids' heads? That's really anti-white of them. I'm so sick of this anti-white crap in school. What about you? And then that's it. Like, there's no, I don't have to proselytize. I don't have to talk anybody into anything. It's just like leaven through bread. I proselytize in a natural, holistic manner, giving the mental tools. And that's what language is. I say it 1,000 times. Tools are what we use to build things. Ideas and social movements and social constructs are things we build with mental tools. And I use the tools of anti-white, anti-whiteism, and white guilt to start putting these tools into everyone's minds that I casually come into contact with and that I do activism with. And I started the activism stuff around the end of last summer. And I did that all the way up until around New Year's. And it just exhausted me and I was about to fall apart. So I had to pull back on the activism stick. So
let's hear about it, and do not hold back. Do not feel like you're bragging.
Okay.
Because you have been active and you've really moved the needle with people around you, aside from being very active online as well, which we'll talk about. But let's start with the IRL stuff first.
Okay.
Right in your own backyard.
Sure. It looked like Jason wanted to say something there. Jason, did you have something to say there? It looked
I just wanted to point out something for those who are actually going free as well and who are trying to make a difference in the world, like the three of us are, and many of you who are in the live chat and who will watch and replay are. And that is what Yizz did when she was talking just now about the conversations she was having with people. And this is something I've mentioned before. She assumes in the conversation that the person is, and she's giving them the credit of being moral and therefore being opposed to anti-whiteism and being opposed to anti-whites. When you do that in a conversation with someone, they are loath to say, oh, no, I'm not moral. I absolutely am for anti-whiteism. They don't want to take that position. So it is a very powerful way to introduce. So Yizz said there, she said, isn't it so awful that they do this anti-whiteism and that they've weaponized? And I've done the same thing many times. You just assume that they automatically agree with you. And more often than not, even people who are reluctant normally will take the moral position that's given them, this moral high ground. Yes, I do indeed object to it. I've had people who had otherwise made anti-white statements and not directly to me so that they were aware that I was aware of it. But then get them alone and then say, it's really awful that so much going on today is anti-white, isn't it? It's really destroying this country. And these people, even though knowing that they had made anti-white statements, that yes, it is terrible that there is this anti-white behavior and there's this destruction, people want to be moral. And we can only be moral and survive, recapture our destiny in our story. And that's, I'll just tack on there tangentially as well. That again, we're seeing so much of these individuals who are, they don't really want to go free, especially now with this Biden bipolar derangement that I'm going to be talking about on Sunday, and that they want to either give in to apathy or and nothingness and surrender, or they want to become a villain, some hue of villain inside of the anti-white narrative. And they see all of the success of the lexicon and dialectics of going free. And they think that they can come in and just cherry pick a word here or a word there, and then pair it with, and not the bird, but pair it with something that they use inside of the anti-white narrative, like saying wokeness or the anti-white slur racist. These are both of these terms are anti-white. So I'm hearing more and more this anti-white wokeness, anti-white racism. When you do this, you empower their terminology and legitimize their ideology. You remain inside of their story. And racism, folks, as you know, this evil anti-white concept, if you are in their story, then that is our original sin. You cannot escape from it. You have to be completely out of their story to be able to succeed here. And this is a perfect thing. And then the last thing I just want to mention, and we can keep rolling with Mr. George's question, and if Yizz had any points you wanted to make to this, is that the anti-whites, look at the difference between going free and white well-being and anti-whites, anti-whiteism. When they were confronted with Yizz, this wonderful human being, this wonderful person who has absolutely found an identity as pure and as pristine as any creator can make it, especially given the circumstances, choosing this beautiful identity and this choice being so magnificent and pristine. These anti-whites wanted to take this person, Yizz, and use her to advance anti-whiteism. When she was not interested in advancing anti-whiteism, they then acted the exact way that genuine cults act.
Yes.
And they went after her to punish her, to make to send a message, make an example.
And my loved ones. That was really bad.
See, that's like genuine cults, mafia. This is the way that evil works. And that is not the way that we work here in service to white well-being. It is all about the love, hope, and redemption for our people, our weakest members. And that's why we draw the absolute best. That's why the anti-whites lose the absolute best as they lost Yizz in their effort to get Yizz. And of course, it was all, and you can see this thin veneer, or I should just say veneer, it's redundant, that Yizz could see through, that their claim was that it was about acceptance. Their claims were that, but it had nothing to do with that. She saw right through it. And I think there are many people who are trapped in those circles because of the fear of the punishment of leaving. And
absolutely.
We need to continue with joy in our heart, with love and happiness in our step. And in the words we share when we proselytize, when we take the message of go free to people, we need to make sure that those people are able to hear our voices too, so that they too can come away from that, taking them away from anti-whiteism, or even just making them doubt the absolute proof or facts that are given to them, the facts that are given them by anti-whites, is a very powerful thing in service to white well-being. So I just wanted to add those two things before we get underway with Yizz's success. I don't know if you had anything you wanted to say to that.
Well, I had something prepared about activism because I knew that Jared wanted me to speak about it. So and especially the Kung Fu analogy about training people, I'll get to in a second.
Yes, I like that. I like that a lot.
Many people online, especially in the white well-being community, have praised me for my works of activism, but I have to say that I don't feel like I've done that much in comparison to some. I just embraced the Go Free book in its entirety because it's life improvement, it's tactics, it's proselytizing, it's mental tools for yourself, it's conversation tools for everyone. And it's a holistic approach that doesn't really feel like I'm doing a lot because I just roll it into what I normally do. And since I'm a content creator and I love building community, that's pretty much my activism is just spreading the ideas of positivity, hope, redemption with a very positive, inclusive message of racial awareness and ending the oppression of white people and all of that. And it works. The proper activism that I did was last year, flyering, phone calls, emails, and social media pressure at the end of last summer to bring local awareness to the anti-whites in the local state college here, who were hosting the reverse of the initials for Major League Baseball art exhibit and putting out anti-white propaganda all over the city. Even the 200-year-old historic township nearby has anti-white posters up with quotes from Nelson Mandela. I did a few local interviews. I talked with several people that were Christians and/or conservative students and student leaders. They supported me and helped me in the flyering campaign and to learn who to call and what names to go with the anti-whites in the college. I learned who to put pressure on and was even able to work my way into the university and confront the anti-white lady responsible for hosting that art exhibit. And there's a playlist up of all of this on my channel. And you guys can go see this. I was able to capture almost the entire confrontation of that woman. That was exciting and fun. And I met some fun people, got some inspiring videos, and I even got an article about it in the local newspaper and a 30-second spot on local news about it. So they talked about the flyers that went out. The local news refused to show the flyer, of course, because you know how they do, but still, it made people talk about it, and we put out over 2,000 flyers in that area. So I know that people locally knew what they were. I kept the pressure up for a month or so afterwards and did my best to encourage students to come forward to battle anti-whiteism. And I told everyone involved about Going Free, the various websites and creators in our cluster. And I did the best I could to plant as many seeds around that university and the people around there in the city as I could while I had the steam going. While I don't know what happened or if my efforts had anything to do with it, that admin lady who was in charge of organizing that art exhibit doesn't seem to be working there anymore this year. I looked her up and I don't see her on the list, and I don't see her involved in organizing art exhibits anymore. Now, I don't know what that means, but I like to think that what I did to encourage the students and the faculty there to speak up against anti-whiteism and to build white sympathetic threads between those people there, I would like to hope that that made a difference in them replacing that lady or just getting rid of her. So in my pursuit to make a difference, I wanted to do all I could to help with other related things, which is what led me to the MAGA and the Patriot community for the Donald Trump activism of last year. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in the upcoming question responses I have prepared, if you want. But go ahead.
What was your strategy? Because it's one thing for us to hear about this win that you had, this great campaign that you had, and sit back and say, wow. But this is a really crucial moment because there's takeaways here that other people listening might be able to get out of this. So this is a gutsy thing that you did even before you started telling this story. I don't know if you're looking at the chat, but people are loving that. They say, you know, you're fire. They know that they're familiar with you from your other streams, your own work on your own channel. This kind of passion, this kind of courage is contagious. So
yeah, it is.
Your very way of being and explaining this, that is contagious in and of itself. That's tremendously valuable in and of itself. But I feel like it's incumbent upon me to better understand. Are you able to take us a little more into the nitty-gritty of what was on your mind and what was the strategy to go in there and shake things up at that local university, even put yourself out there where you weren't afraid to have a newspaper article written or having local news while protecting you and your family as well? What was the
My
plan?
strategy was simple. It was with the completely legitimate and CNN approved pandemic happening. There was social distancing, building lockdowns, mask enforcement, and with wearing a nice jacket, carrying a bag, and wearing my proper face diaper, I was able to walk her through the campus like I was supposed to be there. My cameraman was with me. He did the same. We kept our heads up. We knew where the art exhibit was, and we knew a time frame when they were going to be doing a Q&A. And we wanted to hit just after or just before that. And we were able to hit it perfectly when both the admin and one of the the local instructors or whoever was there. And I got inside, the camera was rolling, and I started pointing out the things that were anti-white and why they were destructive and why they had no place on this campus. And I confronted them, pointed at things, pointed out the hypocrisies, pointed out how this says inclusion, this talks about positivity, look at the images, and these people are part of an anti-white organization that does anti-white things, which is demonstrably true in this imagery. And I put them on the spot, and I had maybe a 15-minute capture of them being on their heels, them having to explain themselves and trying to explain why they aren't the villain. And they failed miserably at it. And so my tactic was,
this was at a public hearing. Was there a little audience hearing this?
It was going to be online. We found out it wasn't going to be there. So we were the only ones there with the administrator and the instructor. And there was a rabidly anti-white, non-white that came in at the very end. But unfortunately, my battery in my phone died, which is what I was capturing it on. So I didn't get the last like 15 seconds of us leaving while she was yelling at us, but I got everything else up to that point. And my tactics, to answer your question,
on your channel. People are asking, this video is still on your channel?
Yeah. In the private chat here in StreamYard, I put the link to the playlist that has all the videos of what I did in that few days to a week period with all the activism. You can share that directly. It's in the private chat here in StreamYard. And that will take you to not only this confrontation, but all of the videos and things I made around that flyering and activism campaign. And it even has, in one of them, it has the 30-second news clip from where what we did made the local news. So my tactics was simple. I wanted there to be demonstrable proof that these anti-white jackals knew what they were doing, and when confronted, they would have no choice but to side against white people and back the anti-white narrative or agree with me and denounce it. And of course, they didn't denounce it. So I had proof that leadership, that administration and leadership people at that university purposefully and willingly, knowingly hosted anti-white things for anti-white reasons. And I made them confront that and basically fess up to that. So that was my whole tactic. And I knew that I could get it. And we didn't park on campus. We parked away. And so there was, we were very smart because we looked up the local laws. We knew where we could park. We knew what we could say and couldn't say. So I was very careful about knowing that I was legally covered just in case they tried to accost us or anything. But after the confrontation, we went a different way that we already had planned out to leave the campus, and everything went smooth. So that was it took a little bit of planning, but that was my tactics, was to be on the up and up and do everything legal, but have a clear goal and message with what I wanted to capture before I got out. And it went well, so I put it up on my channel. And I put the link to the playlist there in private chat, like I said. Let me see.
Yeah, we have mod sharing. We'll make sure those links get around.
As always, Roy Danton just shared it. That's the playlist. Yeah.
Great. And
thank you, Roy.
Always, if you're Roy, always coming through. The moderator, Brent Danger's here too. If you're listening in replay on the afterparty.tv, of course, as always, our guests' links are on the post for this particular episode. You mentioned the MAGA. The MAGA crowd, some other patriot crowds. One thing that's really potent and powerful about the work you're doing now is that, as mentioned earlier, you're reaching out to others. You're being an ambassador. So I think it's high time to hear about that right now.
Okay. Then the Donald Trump stuff, the MAGA activism, like with my other activism, I hand out no white guilt flyers that have no white guilt on them, websites to Jason and Red Ice TV and the other ones that we like to share. And I give that to people locally. I did it to the MAGA America First gatherings I've been to. I did it at DC. And doing my best to be friendly, learn other people's names, greet people, shake hands, always grasping a hand, looking them in the eyes, saying, "No white guilt, brother," or "You're loved and not alone, sister." And, that kind of thing. I know that some of you might think that's kind of corny or lame, but I like carrying a message of inclusion and love like an old-timey preacher or old-timey Southern politician. So the reason I say that I don't feel like I've done a lot of activism is I don't want people to get the wrong idea about me. I'm not an activist as a primary drive, but I care about my people and making things better as a primary drive. So my activism is basically just networking and speaking positively about the Go Free lexicon. Not only that, but the Go Free ideas of why it makes things better, why we can win in people's hearts and minds doing that. And I think that the more that I focus on reaching communities, making friends, it's genuine fun. And people feel that genuine fun and connection with me. And then they open up to me, or they at least are willing to hear what I have to say. And I get them to realize they should be like me and celebrate white positivity with truth and a smile in all that they do. And to me, that's the very core of what I think Jason's Go Free book wants us to do. I think that's the goal, is to literally carry it with us, and in everything we do that matters, carry the ideas and the words of the Go Free book, because we really want everybody to go free of the anti-white narrative. That's the goal. And doing it like I do it, I think that it matters. And now, if you want me to, this is where the Kung Fu thing you wanted me to talk about comes up.
Yeah, go for it. I love this. I love this.
Okay. Yeah, here's me talking to the anti-whites. I was a little fatter back then. I was coming off depression, and it was just after I had lost my city contract. So I've already lost about 15 pounds from them. So I'm not quite as fat as I am there. But the Kung Fu thing, to answer that quandary, I liken it to what I do as a martial arts exercise. When you practice serious martial arts with others, you learn what works as you go to better complement or defeat different types of strikes and grapples. And with my many years of experience talking to others about important things and inspiring them to take healthier actions, I've adapted much of that into spreading the lexicon of Go Free and getting others to think in a healthy way about things instead of a negative, exclusionary way about things. Most folks care about regular stuff. They care about what their kids do, like we talked about earlier. They care what their kids get taught. They care about what they passively hear around them at work and on the news. They care about what impacts their career. They care about what impacts their local community. And when you put all of that in the lens of the anti-white narrative, especially the effects of mass migration, it all just clicks into place, and it's easy to use these words simply in casual conversation. So it's like when you use martial arts, you eventually just make things rote. That word is ROTE. And for people that don't know that word, it means a specific method of practice or an equation or formula that you know works. So you commit it to muscle memory to where you just automatically do it, like typing in a password for the 1,000th time. You just know it and it happens. That's how I believe we should start implementing certain meme curatives and the Go Free lexicon in everything we do, to where it's autonomic and mimetic, to use those terms correctly. So let me get back to my place here. I went off script a little bit. Let's see what else I had prepared for this about the Kung Fu thing. Yeah, here we go. This approach allows me to quickly interface with people online and in person to get them thinking and talking about issues that they normally would do anyway, but using the words anti-white and anti-whiteism so they naturally realize that weaponized white guilt is at the core of all these problems. And doing so with the words I give them, they can easily illustrate that to everybody in their lives. And I think that really is the message that Jason wants us to do. So I sort of look at it like Jason gave me an old Kung Fu scroll and I'm learning the arts of the masters, that kind of thing. So
well, there's also, I know, you talk about chop wood, carry water, that whole thing. You say how when they taught the student, it wasn't actually Kung Fu at all at first. It was all these other things that they cared about to get them into a certain mindset.
Oh yeah. Like when you watch it, like I love hokey old Hong Kong movies and Kung Fu movies and stuff. And like Jared just said, a big part of the trope is a young man wants to learn Kung Fu. So the master just make him carry water and do all these other exercises and stuff. But what he doesn't realize is that is the nature of Kung Fu. It is hard work and dedication and becoming a master of yourself and your body type of thing. And that application that I see is, I don't need to be an activist with a sign screaming on the corner to spread ideas. I just need to talk to people and make them happy to talk to me and use the right words in the right way, because it's holistic, it's natural, and it gets people thinking about things in a healthy, constructive way to hopefully end our oppression. And I think that that's just it's a very healthy framework to look at it in, is I don't have to become a quote unquote activist. I don't really want people to think of me as an activist. I just want people to think of me as a lovable, fun person who loves community building and cares about my people and wants the oppression of whites to end in our country. And since I've been carrying that torch, I've had a lot of success. People want to talk to me. They want to invite me around again. They listen to me at church. They listen to me at locally whenever I walk around or go to the farm and feed store or whatever. People are glad to see me come around and they want to hear what I have to say. So I don't feel like I could do that if I was just trying to be an activist, if you get what I mean by the Kung Fu metaphor.
Yeah, exactly.
I see Jason nodding. I'm assuming he approves of what I've been laying down.
Most people are, like you said, they're not as ensconced in all of this as we are.
Yeah.
And it's very easy. It's very easy to be involved in certain circles online and to forget. I've seen this happen when people you lose perspective and you begin thinking like the whole world shares your little 4chan memes and it's like your chat room culture.
Yeah.
You have to, the day belongs to people with social intelligence, with dynamism like Yizz, who have the right frame, who have love in their hearts, not love. You have to be able to separate the agenda. We expect that our community here has the wherewithal to understand the nuance. And look at what Yizz laid down from the beginning. You have a certain situation you were born with, but you had the right perspective. You realized when other anti-white groups were using you, and you got out of that situation. It
took me longer than I liked, but at least I came out of it with my head on my shoulders and knew that I was right.
Yeah. But this is about so much more than it being just a little club of a few people that are like, well, we're of European heritage. Well, that's good. You're not anti-white. That's a nice start, but it's not enough to just have a little echo chamber, not know how to talk to other people, and not know how to, as you say, present yourself. Just assume the frame. I love what you were saying earlier about you don't come out with throwing nuclear bombs at people. You're just like, hey, you just like sidle up next to someone. You're like, hey, yeah, look at Jason's talking about this too. Jason's talking about just dropping these little hints, even with passersby on a street corner waiting at a stoplight, waiting across the street. Like, yeah, look at this anti-white stuff, man. We have to do something about this. This is crazy. You just assume that this is the normal thing. You bring them into your frame. You bring them into the center of your gravity. So that, you explained that well with the Kung Fu analogy. I appreciate that a lot with the whole thing. Chop water, chop wood, carry water. These are the things most people do. Meet people where they are.
Well, and I just want to quickly say, folks, first of all, if you want to financially gift or ask questions, make sure you tag me when you do so. Again, your options for financial gifting are Entropy and Cash App, and the links to those are in the description below. I just want to quickly say, bungee into the conversation, that what I've wanted to do here, play on the screen while we were having a bit of the conversation, is what we all need to be doing. Yizz she went out, and this is one of many instances where she went out. She's having a polite conversation. She's empowered with the lexicon and dialectics of going free. She is the moral, virtuous, loving, caring person in this conversation, as opposed to the woman she is speaking to, which is having to assume, this woman who is having to assume the position of the bad guy at this art exhibit, which is garbage. And if you were to approach this in any other way, if you were to approach this conversation, if you were to go out to the art exhibit and distribute the leaflets and talk about what's being done in any other way, you will be painted as the villain, and you would be the villain, which is why you don't see people going out and engaging with normal folks with villainous approaches to our well-being. They simply don't do it. They don't talk with regular people. They only go out to these fringe environments, like the the craziest of the looking people at the gun exhibit is the one they'll talk to, and then they'll say, yeah, I talked to him and he agrees with us, got him right. But he already agreed that to be a villain. He's already playing the villain. So we don't need those people. We need normal folks. And I will tell you this, I am delighted that Yizz went about this in a professional way, in a moral way, in a virtuous way, in a heroic way, and had enormous success. And potentially this woman was relieved of her position as a consequence. I'm not a conservative. We are not conservatives. I am not of the opinion that you do not get results and you do not use the tools that the virtuous and the heroic striving for glory in service of white well-being can make a use of, that you deny yourself those because you end up winning by using those tools. No, you go in there and you be the moral agent, you be the moral individual, you have the success, and if the outcome is that you have gone in there with love, hope, and redemption for our people, a disgusting white erasure was what was taking place here at this so-called art exhibit, really just anti-white filth. It is absolute white erasure. I think Yizz might have even used white erasure in the conversation there. It's purely anti-white filth that is in this place. And if by presenting good love, hope, and virtue to the community, a person who is doing something so ugly is removed from their position, then damn right, that's exactly what should happen. They've been removing us from our jobs. They've been removing us from our positions because what? White people weren't anti-white enough? And they have been impoverishing us as a consequence, preventing us from getting jobs, preventing us from getting into university, etc., in so many ways harming us. This idea that you do nothing, that you be like the lamb and you let them devour you, is obscene, it is disgusting, and it of course always leads to failure. And tangentially, or I guess I should say in parallel to this idea that you do not avail yourself of the tools, which is, I was just having a conversation about the Republicans. They intentionally lose. They lose every time because they refuse to avail themselves of the tools that work and would enable them to win. Why? Because they get in trouble when they win. So that is what you are ultimately endorsing. If you're one of these big Republican financial backers, you are being fleeced by fraudsters. You are absolutely being fleeced. You need to put your money into white well-being and the good work that we are doing here so that we can continue to have victories like this on a regular basis. This is the kind of thing that all of us need to be doing. She had a very long conversation with this woman. She was very polite. She held the moral position, the virtuous position the entire time. And this woman, as a consequence, ended up looking like the villain that she is in our story. And I cannot...
Especially the non-white woman that speaks second, she very much made herself out to be the villain.
Perfect. Yeah, I cannot laud you enough for the glorious work that you have been doing. This is the way we should all be doing it, talking to our friends, family, and we're safe. And as Yizz was talking about here, she took the pains to make sure that she was safe. Her cameraman was safe, that we're safe, be talking to strangers in environments like this and elsewhere to make a big difference. It can be as small as the bus stop or the street corner while you're waiting to cross the street, being able to say X, Y, or Z and leave a person with that so that they assume that, wow, there are a lot of people out here who disagree with this anti-whiteism. If somebody actually said it to me, then there must be many more out there. This is how we change the world. Nobody is going up to somebody on the street corner and saying, hey, you know what? Here are some Aunt Nat ideas, because they know they'll be spat on. They'll know they'll be hated for. They know deep down that it doesn't work. Ladies and gentlemen, you've got to go what works with what wins while we have time.
Yes.
So I just want to really spotlight this activity here, and folks could see the entire time your posture. They could see how you were, how you had composure the entire time you were having this conversation. There was nothing hostile. You weren't suddenly, and I'll just say this so that when folks go watch this later today or whenever they get over, and I've shared the link to this playlist several times now in the live chat, Yizz does not have recourse to, but let me go ahead and read all the FBI data. Let me go ahead and tell you how this other group over here is so baneful, and I'm just going to talk to you all day long. And let me tell you all the names of this other group over here. She's talking about our people, about white erasure, about anti-whiteism, and that is what you all should be doing. Do not fall. I know a lot of people are suffering from this Biden bipolar derangement, this BBD right now. I know that a lot of people are suffering from it. Do not fall for it. Do not go down that path. You will not have any success. This is the path you need to go for success. I pass it back.
Well, Jason, didn't you say we had some questions? Weren't we ramping up for that?
Yes. Well, let's see if we do have a couple from. We did have a semi-related. Althea was asking, do you have folks going free in Italy, Poland, and Hungary? Any flyer campaigns there? Today, those three countries formed a union to make Europe great again. Can someone leaflet there? Well, if we do have people going free in those countries, I have sent, in fact, leaflets to all three of those countries, actually, Italy, Poland, and Hungary. So if you all listening to my voice are in those countries, now's the time to get out there to leaflet. Do so in English where the people speak English fluently, and in the languages of those countries. Art Acrobats points out the anti-whites are now saying anti-Asian. Yeah, the anti-whites are going to be their intelligentsia of their oligarchy are on the ball, and they have observed clearly and know the power of anti-white and have anticipated the phrase anti-white, Antiwhiteism, the concepts and the arguments that we are bringing forward, anticipated these, and they are obviously going to endeavor to undermine them, those constructs. The best thing that you can do is you stick to anti-white, Antiwhiteism, and the whole purpose of when they say anti-Asian is they want to strap it to their old anti-white slurs so that they can revive them, because they have your entire lifetimes to count on the power of those phrases manipulating you. They'll end up saying anti-Asian racism, anti-Asian hate, anti-Asian. So when you see that, you know that we've talked about it long in advance, that you do not fall for it. These are the magical spells that manipulate people's minds and therefore their actions. And that is what enables the anti-whites, has enabled them to conquer the West, and is enabling them to keep the West submerged or under the heel of the anti-whites. And we're not going to fall for it anymore, at least those of us who are serving white well-being, like the great Yizz and Mr. George. Let me swivel around here really quickly and see if we do. We do have a $10 financial gift from the great, another magnificent participant in service to white well-being, Promethean Promulgation. Thank you so much, good brother, financially gifting $10. And he says, Jared always dips his chalice into the table and takes a swig of Polar, is that water, before he cuts into his plate of water. Okay.
Cutting water, yes. That's my little turn of phrase before.
And let me take a quick look, and then we will give folks an opportunity for any other questions. Remember, tag me. I'll take a look at the question widget, and we'll get to any thoughts that Yizz had on anything maybe that I just said, or where Jared was going with the next question. Okay, before that, though, we have a financial gift from the great, the one and only, another champion, Brad C. Great to see you, good brother, always with us, financially gifting $20. Thank you, brother. And he writes, hails to heroes, Jason, Jared, and Yizz. Well, thank you so much. That's splendid.
Thank you.
Brother.
Thank you.
I really appreciate that. And
something came up earlier, Jason, that I wanted to speak on before we got out of here today, because I'd actually prepared a little thing to read to you guys about not only the Great Order, but why Go Free is so important to me because of the message of positivity. It counters the evil that I used to call nihil, the weaponized white guilt. Would you like me to speak on that for a moment? It's the last thing I have prepared for the day.
Please.
Okay. One of the things that Jared and I talked about was the layers of identity people experience that are now being flattened and destroyed by ideologies and political systems. And I think that of the many evils perpetrated against us by the anti-white narrative, it is the force of nihil. And that word is N-I-H-I-L. It's the root word of terms that most people know, like annihilate and nihilism. The ancient root word nihil means the nothing or the lack of anything. And that's the greatest blow dealt to Westernkind. It's the destruction of our everything. It keeps us from being holistic. In the last century, every fundament of our civilization has been obliterated or inverted. The concept of God and the pursuit of faith, the role of man and woman to each other, the family structure, the innocence of childhood, the pursuit of self-reliance, the nobility of stoicism, and in my opinion, the most important one that's been removed is the desire for truth. The collapse of these fundaments is resonant, meaning that the destruction of God and faith creates a vacuum, a spiritual vacuum in both the individual and the family, which resonates in a cascade of destruction through the community, and it breaks the connections that once held our society together. In the great order, perhaps as Jared might call it, a man creates his own worth through work and dedication. He marries one woman who in turn proves herself through wisdom, caring, and emotional strength. They make a family. They raise children. They energize their offspring by example. They teach them to unlock their genetics appropriately so that they properly learn about nature, gender roles, ethics, all that good stuff. Families work together to better protect and educate their children and safeguard the fruits of their labor. These family networks make close-knit communities who in turn network with other communities and so on down the chain until we have the society that was taken from us. Those healthy chains were all broken and insidiously replaced by the chains of enslavement. The anti-white narrative uses government programs, institutional education, materialism, capitalist consumerism, all the isms. The list goes on. And at the core of it all, the great nihil is white guilt, the inescapable onus put on us of self-hatred and a sick desire to not associate, to not build those families, to not be a stoic man, to not be a virtuous woman. That is the real cancer. It is the cancer of nihil. And because of Jason and Going Free, I now have more applicable words to put to that to spread to others. And I think that that is how we combat this. That's how we heal this damage, is to reach people with the true message of hope and redemption, like Jason says, is to inspire young men and women to create families and communities like our people did for ages before the modern era of anti-white cancer. We must end the nihil, and the way that you dispel the darkness is to bring light to it. And that's why I call us the people of light.
Well, very well said. And you're right. One of the things that started me out a few years ago in the broadest sense and the deepest sense, it's similar to what you're talking about here with the nihil, is that there's this meaninglessness that pervades everything, and it's destroying lives, and it's from there destroying our social fabric. And that's one of the reasons we spoke about this a little bit, why I named my thing The Great Order. There's means a few different things to me, but fits perfectly into everything that we're talking about. Although you left us with a lot, because you mentioned you went into some other territory with isms, and there were other questions about things like that. And we're just going to have you back on, because
the thing I just said, I'm the most passionate about, and I've been thinking about it for years, and I'll talk your ear off about it. We can even do a stream on my channel or on yours or both about it.
Yeah. You had a great talk with Academic Agent. I've listened to a couple of hours of it thus far from last week, and you really represented the points well. And I had some notes from that. Some of that dovetail exactly with what you just said, and we'll have to have you back. This proved to be mostly, as the first appearances tend to do, really the focus was just on an introduction to Yizz. I mean, a lot of people know you in the chat already, but in terms of just your first official time headlining the after party as our guest, being in the hot seat, this was a little bit of a getting to know you. So then, now that we've had this established, when you come back, we can get into some other interesting topics. Again, I
know that with content creators, you're often the most busy and don't have time to learn others. The chat probably knows a lot of what I just said, where the two of you might not have. So this is a good opportunity for you two to get to know sort of what I'm about, where I came from, why
Yes.
I care, and what I work on. So now the two of you have a better grasp on the trajectory I'm on with building networks and communications with all different kinds of content creators and local communities and activists and political folks. Like, I just want, like, I enjoy networking and talking to others. I'm a chatty Cathy, as they say sometimes. And I like using my words and my passion to make things better. And I feel like that is the trajectory I should stay on because it fulfills me and it seems to have good results. So I think that's what I need to stick with.
Well, you're using your talents, and it's all, we all have our different talents.
Mm-hmm.
The difference is in consciously choosing how and where to put them. And you're obviously doing that very well right now. You found your voice. From what you told us in the beginning, your instinct was always there from the kind of work that you were doing when you lived in the Southwest, but it was thwarted because you thought you were somewhere and you really were somewhere else, as those people revealed themselves to be the unhinged people, unfortunately, that they are,
Yeah.
And we can only hope that they heal eventually in their own lives. But while they're in the process of working their stuff out, we have to be strong. We have to put up our boundaries. We have to protect ourselves and our loved ones.
And like Jason, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry.
I was just saying, just so we don't get caught up in the whirlwind of their insanity and their self-hatred. It's very
like Jason said earlier about competence and knowing that you have the moral high ground. That is critically important, because when, like, I made a passionate video recently. Jason giggled because I called it the Israelite Sermon on the Mount. But I told people the reason why Go Free is so great is you're not being negative. You're not blaming things on another group. You're not proselytizing about hating the puppies. You're not talking about the migrants who come from mass migration being the bad guys. Because when you encounter people like the people that I had to encounter out in the Southwest, and if I go to them and say, you're being anti-white, this is anti-white, this is ugly, this is oppressive, that is about action. That's not about inalienable traits they were born with. It's me saying, you're being anti-white, but here's my hand, sister. Here's my hand, brother. Take my hand. You can be virtuous. You can be a good guy in the narrative. Mm-hmm. You can leave this villainry and be a hero with me. And there's a lot of power in that people don't talk about anywhere but here with Going Free. And that's one of the reasons that I really jumped into this with both feet, is because we're doing real, valorous, noble, good things here. It's not a veneer on something ugly. It really is about changing how our people view our own people. It's about getting everyone who is passively or actively anti-white to realize they're being oppressive bad guys. And I say, here's my hand. You don't have to be that way anymore. And when you have strength of character and you know you stand on virtue and you have the language and wherewithal to back it up, that power resonates with people and they will follow you. They follow me. They listen to me at church. They listen to me locally, and they receive me well when I go to marches and stuff with the MAGA crowd. So I encourage everyone to do what I'm doing. It ain't rocket surgery. You can all do it. You just have to have the will to do it. And trust me, there's a lot of ears out there ready to hear what we have to say. So go say it.
Look at this example. Look at you're leading by example, and my hat's off to you. This is beautiful, and I agree with you. I'll keep it short right now, but I had the same kind of compass for these things, and that's why I ended up primarily working with Jason. Why we got along from the beginning. Yeah, I'll leave it at that for now, because this is what I've always been about. This is what I've always been about. Some people, I don't think many people here, maybe nobody here today. Certainly not the majority of the people who are our community here. But sometimes there are some assumptions about you're saying one thing, but you really are this way in real life or behind closed doors, and it's really not the case. When properly understood, and if you want to go to my site and you want to read, it's all there. It's been there from the beginning. Mm-hmm. I have 9 essays. It's kind of a metaphysics of what I do. It's a little heady, it's a little philosophical, but I worked it out for myself, and it's there if you want to read it. And why I call my thing the Great Order. It really isn't about anything other than having the correct sequence of boundaries amongst all the different ways you experience yourself, the different ways we all have different identity, your family, your town, your region, your nation. We talk about that here all the time. And yes, in proper contexts with other human beings as well. I'm not this hermetically sealed object where I never take into account people that aren't white. It's more the fact that we have an emergency in our nations right now amongst our peoples. In the day and age I was born into, of course, I have to put the majority of my time and energy into that, because who's going to help and save and rehabilitate peoples of European descent if it's not peoples of European descent?
And the reason why we shouldn't be the villain in the anti-white narrative and blame things on other groups is because if you're going to be a virtuous person and you're going to stand stoically with your convictions, you don't want to be the preacher that goes and gets drunk at the bar every night. You don't want to be the holy monk that you go out walking and on your prayer you go visit the brothel. Like, you need to live and walk the walk. And you can't do that being the villain in the anti-white narrative. If you disparage other groups and you blame things on other people and you use hateful racial epithets against people, no one's going to trust what you have to say when you start talking about virtue and being the good guy. You actually have to put in the work and be a virtuous person. So stop all that anti-white crap of living in their narrative and being the villain and trying to blame things on the puppies or the bees or the Fs or whatever. Be us. Celebrate us. Champion the people of light, speak the truth about white guilt, and help everybody go free, because then you get to be the hero. You get to be the paladin. You get to be the Valkyrie that saves the Vikings. Like, you get to be a real hero to our people, and we need that right now. So do it.
Yeah, very well said. You have to be it. And this is, again, there's nuance, and I understand people are confused, and like you said, we reach a hand out. And even people who tell me off in comments, if they come back and they honestly say I had a change of heart, that's fine. I'll forget what you said. I don't hold grudges, but this is where the nuance is. When you say be a good person, I understand. I can understand this. I try to put myself in someone else's shoes, especially if they're new to these scenes or they just see the bad news. They see the anti-white narrative out in the media. Maybe they're feeling it. Maybe they're living in an area where there's a lot of danger and they're feeling it day to day. I understand that. I get that. And when you hear, oh, be virtuous, be good, the surface level of that is, wait, are these guys up here on tap just telling me to be politically correct? Isn't that what got us in this mess? And this is where the nuance is. Well, no, none of us here muzzle ourselves. None of us here worry about this fake morality, political correctness, obviously. But there's a lot of forces that want you to swing the pendulum the other way and get you out of balance. We talked about martial arts a little bit before. We used a martial arts metaphor. Any martial art will teach you about mentally, spiritually, physically. You have to be very balanced in your own core, or you're going to fall off of your center of gravity and you're going to be defeated. So one of the ways this is being done right now is saying, well, the way out of it is to do what the apparent opposite of the politically correct or gelded anti-white language is. So go out and act and talk about violence, go out and talk, use epithets against people who aren't white. There's no reason for that. We have to be heroes and we have to rise above that. I've said this before, but when we look at our heroes on our mythology, the best heroes from our Western lore, they were strong men and they set things to rights when things needed to be set to rights. They put the scales back in balance when they needed to, but they didn't go out looking for trouble. They didn't sit around with hate in their hearts when there was peace in the kingdom and just saying, well, who can we go attack now? Because they were ugly people with twisted hearts. No, when the realm was under attack, they stood up, they defended it with honor, and then they went back to a peaceful way of life. Leaders rose up within the realm. We talk a lot about this good leadership. Men rose other men up. They wanted to see them rise to their best potential. It wasn't tyranny. It was, the stories that's all in our stories. Our best instincts are all encoded in those myths and those fairy tales. So I'll leave you with that. I don't want to go
Sure.
too over, but Jason,
Very well said, the both of
do
you.
we have any questions before we?
We do have some more. We're gonna shoot through here, and another financial gift. I did want to say, that just this one thing, thought came to mind while you all were speaking there toward the end, that our greatest heroes, men and women throughout the history of our people, when we were attacked by other tribes of people, we did not, our ancestors, our people, our greatest heroes, did not say, what is the story that the people who want to victimize us, what is the story that they live in, that they live their lives by, and how do we fit into their story as the bad guy, as the dehumanized monster in their story, and let me assume that role. We never did that. We never did that. I don't know how many times, and this is why with these people, especially now, with so many people suffering BBD and heading this direction to play the villain, it is sickening. And at no point in the history, I mean, I really want folks to think about this long after we wrap up here today, that no point, the Mongolian hordes, for example, they came up to Europe and they had a whole story about what their people were and where they came from. And that story served the well-being of their people. And when they came across new groups of people, they had descriptions for them, what they were, and it was all awful. When they finally reached the eastern, the far eastern reaches of Europe, they had a story for white people. They had a story for Westernkind, and it was most ugly.
Yes.
And we won't go into detail because this is not the kind of thing that we do, but there are many tales that other peoples have had, and it's quite natural for them to put themselves in the center. In fact, that's the only thing that's natural, to put themselves in the center of their story and then make everything else periphery. This, what we see today, is a sickening aberration of an animal, if you want to anthropomorphize it, of an animal that is nigh death, that it adopts gleefully the role of the villain in someone else's story. In this case, the anti-whites. That is sickening. That is sickening. And the fact that you know, I can look up, and I've been looking at the past couple of days now, hundreds of sickening comments over on the PWR, the feeds under the threads under the posted shows of these people absolutely attacking me for going free, for wanting to have, for being in our own story, and sickeningly, and misrepresenting me and everything else under the sun, and sickeningly embracing fervently the villain in someone else's story. They know in their own minds, and the thing that's very frustrating for me is that I've had this argument for decades now with these folks, for decades. They know that if they were to succeed, which is not possible, it's not even remotely thinkable, but they know that if they were to succeed in that vein, that it would be the triumph of evil over good, because that is the role they're playing in that story. None of our ancestors did that. None of our champions. And you think Charles Martel, or you could just go down the list, did they ever say, what's the story about us in the victimizers' heads? Let's assume that position. They never did that. How sick. How sick. I'm going to get fired up. Not going to do it. But how absolutely sick.
I'll get fired up with you, Jason. Let it go.
Jason, how, I mean, we know this is happening a bit on BitChute. I mean, it's so obvious on BitChute. How much of it do you think is coming from people who are riling our folks up, who are taking the more vulnerable or newer or less nuanced people here? Because basically what we've been seeing going on here is what a subverter would want.
Yeah.
So when someone's typing these things, they're either a subverter. You know, we don't want to get into the you're a Fed, I'm a Fed, he said, she said thing.
Right.
But when you're posting things that a subverter is exactly what would want to happen, hook, line, and sinker, you're effectively a subverter, whether even if your aim is true. So if your aim is true and you think this is the right thing, or if you could get back to someone who you know is in this mindset, because most people listening to this chat right now aren't going to be in that mindset. But if you know someone in these different spheres that are, reach out to them and make them realize this is textbook what a subverter would want you to be saying and doing.
Exactly. I got into a discussion
for them.
I got into a discussion about this about a week ago with someone who is not necessarily, to my knowledge, an antique nationalist, but just will not shut up about the puppies. It's the puppies this, the puppies that. And they think that the most noble thing they can do is to shout about the puppies and show all of this data that they have, whether it's true or not, who knows. And they think that that is the path to winning. And the way that I won in that conversation is I said, okay, what is your end game? Let's say you get a spot on national television and you convince 1 million people of what you're saying. All you have done is made people hate a group. That's all you've done. You haven't created anything. You have created hate. You have created resonant hatred and malcontent that the anti-white narrative will weaponize to ruin lives and to perpetuate the monster narrative. That's what you do with that. Mm-hmm. That's where that road ends, is with hatred and animosity. And what do you think caused the brother wars, Mr. Man that won't shut up about the puppies? It was exactly that. And so that's how I won that argument. And he actually conceded that I might be right. So that's as far as I got with him. But it matters with what you just said, is if we're going to push a narrative of exclusion and hatred and vilification of others, then whether you're a Fed or not, whether you're a manipulator or not, or a subverter, the end goal is the same. That's where that path goes. And I don't want any part of it. And I don't think anybody listening wants any part of it. We have to convince people who care about our people to stop being on this path. It leads to the alienation of everybody normal and decent from your life. Yes. Don't do it.
I'll just put it very briefly. I've never told anyone to not do their own research about things. I've never denied the fact that our mainstream history that you're taught in public school, it's going to be skewed, and there's a lot we haven't been taught, and there's some interesting things to learn there. I've never denied that. But the last pill, really, and this is hard for a lot of people to hear, because I want you to look deep inside, because if you resist this, then there's a part of you that doesn't want to take full agency and be conscious. And I talked about what began me even before I met Jason. And this is why you get clear on who you are. You have a strong core. You attract the right people. That's why, again, Jason and we became fast friends, and we've had a smooth relationship for the last 3 years, because we knew who we were. We knew the men we were prior to meeting each other, and we were able to recognize what we valued in the other very quickly. All that to say, I knew from day one that this was about us. The last pill, the real last pill, is the white pill, in the sense that this is on us.
Yep.
We can heal ourselves. We can't ultimately, we can learn about facts and hidden history. Great, sure. There's a time and a place for that. But the main thrust, the main eye on the prize, is we have our agency. This is about healing us.
Yep.
That's the real last pill. And a lot of people aren't man or woman enough to hear that.
Yep.
And we have to just calmly and with dignity keep pushing that forward like Yizz did. And like I said, I encourage everyone here listening, you know what I'm talking about. You know what's going on right now. And
in that Discord conversation, there was only about 10 people present having the discussion. Everyone except this guy by the end agreed with me and told him he was being a jerk. And so even if that guy never changes his behavior, what about the people who were listening that didn't talk?
Yeah.
They heard me stand on virtue and speak truth to power. And it's very, very important, the words that you choose and the hill that you pick to die on. And I want to die on the hill of virtue and truth, because then at least I will die inspiring my people for noble, just reasons, instead of being a contentious turd that just wants to fill everybody's heads with hatred and exclusion.
Yeah, no. And it's an easy laugh. It's an easy thumbs up, for everyone here, not here in this chat, but in the more general white sympathetic spheres. And we're going to keep talking about this. This isn't just, it just came up on the show with Yizz. Jason and I are fed up, and we're going to keep talking about this, right, Jason? I mean, this is, we just have to draw a line in the sand.
Yep.
Again, this isn't a change because Biden's in. If you have a head for it, like I said, it's a little more philosophical. Go read my foundation's essays. They've been up on my site for 3.5 years. Haven't changed since I started. I laid my cards out from the beginning. I didn't say, what I'm about to say wasn't specifically stated in this, but it's in the spirit. You could extract from the spirit of those writings. It's an easy laugh. It's an easy thumbs up when I could say, oh, I had a cheeseburger today, or oh, it was a sunny day and I enjoyed doing work in the sun outside, and someone will bring it back to that certain group. It's like I could say anything. It's, oh yeah, you must be that must be a euphemism for this. It's like, shut up already. Okay? I'm sick of it. It's an easy laugh. It's easy applause. Everyone in the chat goes, you know what? A lot of people in this thing that think they are an NPCs, they're an NPC about that. It's the herd mentality all over again. If you want to be a man or a woman and not a boy or a girl, as I said earlier, the last pill is it's on us. It's on us. It's about
we are
us.
the heroes now. We're all that's left. And I would rather be a hero than a villain. What about you? That's what
easy answer for me, and I think most of the people here. We have the great Machiavellius, who has financially gifted $25. Thank you so much for that. Machiavellius sucks over there, $25. And we will refresh the screen to make sure we didn't miss anybody. And we're going to run through the questions over here on the question widget on Entropy. We have.
I'm sorry if I took us over time. I just get passionate and excited. I like to speak my mind.
No, I know it's something to be passionate about. So it's good. No worries. It's good content. And it's the kind of thing that people need to hear, especially now with everybody suffering this Biden bipolar derangement. Greek man writes here, thank you, Yizz, for your work. I am now subscribed to you on BitChute. Thank you for that, Greek man. He also,
unfortunately, about BitChute, I can't upload there anymore. I've had severe trouble getting uploads to work there for the last 3 months, and I just gave up. So I appreciate the follow on BitChute, but until the uploads start working for me again, the best place that's non-YouTube to find my content is Odyssey Library.
Odyssey. So there you go. Odyssey Library. And what is the, you just type in Yizz on Odyssey?
Yeah. You can find the links to that on all my videos on BitChute and on YouTube. So it's, I'm the same handle, Yizz the Eunuch, everywhere that you can find me.
Nice. Fantastic. We also have, he added on to there, Promethean Greetings, NWG, The Great Order, and Yizz. And, NWG, I saw your video on BitChute about car battery removal video with my parents. Well, that's fantastic. Okay. I hope you all had a bit of fun watching me lose tools and use the wrong tools and injure myself while I'm changing the car battery in a video I didn't even intend to make. Let's see. Son of the South, great to see you, brother, writes, what's all of your opinions on what is happening to Southern history? And do you guys like Southern historical flags? Well, I guess we'll all speak relatively briefly on this. The flags of the South, I am a diehard Southerner, very proud Virginian. And so I love all of the heritage of the South. It is a particular hue of Western civilization and Western culture. I love all of the hues of Western culture. And but this is my home, and I believe that those flags and the symbolism should be in places of reverence. They should not be used elsewhere. Like, for example, these people who would take the flag of the South, and you're not doing that, Son of the South. You have the St. Andrew's Cross with the stars, but you'll see somebody who will take one of the Confederate flags, and then they'll have as an avatar with a skeleton, or something to just be ugly. And that is when you take the South out of what it actually is and you put it into the anti-white narrative and you interpret it the way the anti-whites interpret it. That's being the villain. That is one form of being the villain in the anti-white narrative, is to get a Confederate flag and to get a photo of yourself, maybe with a skull covering on and a firearm. That is to look like the villain. So don't ever do that, in my opinion. That is playing the villain in their story, and it is disgraceful. It is a disgraceful thing to do to our symbolism, our flags, and the things that people fought. It's the same thing with the Stars and Stripes. People fought, died, loved for, got maimed for, and put their blood into the soil of this earth so that we could have the things that so many of the vagues out there today are willingly giving away. So don't ever do that. Now, as far as Southern history, the only reason we have it today is because better Southerners than us, better white people than us, after the South lost the war for independence, they preserved the history of the South in their oral traditions. They wrote their own books. They wrote their own poetry. They wrote their own music. That's all the things that we have to do today, because the United States was viciously endeavoring to absolutely eradicate, and of course check with CNN to make sure that this is true, the culture of the South. And if it was not for people preserving and creating that culture, we would not have what little we have today. So you in the regime, in the public and private schools and et cetera, it is now subject to the anti-white narrative and is something very ugly. Ignore that. Go to your kin and preserve that particular hue of Western culture. It's a beautiful thing. And the thoughts from either of you as we are wrapping up?
Well, all I'll say to it is, while I agree with you about not playing the villain or stepping into traps of the anti-white narrative, my family have been in this area since before that war, and I have very strong feelings about the war of Northern aggression, and I'll leave it at that.
Very good, Mr. George. Well,
any thoughts?
We don't want to see any regions in any of our countries eradicated. Yeah, maybe another time. I did want to ask you, Yizz, about, especially being from Appalachia, what that meant to you, like seeing Hollywood presented a certain way. But maybe y'all could teach me about it a little bit more. Because
you're welcome to come down here and have a drink and listen to some banjo and some fiddle with me one day if you want to.
I'll try to figure out the banjo a little bit. I've played them a couple times, being a guitar player. But
we can get the rifles and we can get the 22s and go hunt some squirrels together. That's a good time too.
That would definitely be an initiation. Roy Danton says, let's not call it the rebel flag. It's part of our Southern heritage. It is indeed. It's that one that they usually refer to as the rebel flag is actually the battle flag,
yes,
the square-shaped one. And Mestizo says, hail Yizz, hail Tap. Is everyone hyped for episode 100 of PWR? It's going to be epic. Yes, we're hyped. It's this coming Wednesday, and it's quite a milestone to get to that point. We're happy to get there. Thanks, Mestizo. Let's see. Kizak says, Jason, in your lexicon, do you use terms and phrases in Orwell's books like doublethink, the party? No, I don't use any of that. None of that is, that was for, the book was for, it was a didactic, but for entertainment. That terminology, much of it has been taken up by conservatives. It does not put us in our own story. It does not take us out of the anti-white. So you can think of, when we're talking about our story, we're talking about a worldview, a zeitgeist. We're talking about the truths that we live by. We dictate those. I know it is so hard as hell for so many people, I know for decades now, to get that you can be in your own story. But I've been doing it all this time. And if you need a rock in all of the fluidity and the motion and the currents and the rapids of modern living and the anti-white narrative, and that's capitalized on purpose, because that is the narrative that we are forced to live our lives by. If in all of that maelstrom you need something to hold on to, somebody who doesn't give a damn what the anti-whites think, somebody who's able to just say his mind, then feel free to grab onto me and hold on tight, because this is our story. I do not bend at all. I don't sway at all with the anti-whites. And this is how we are going to be able to recapture our destiny. Inside their story, in any shape or form, is loss, because they wield the pen there. Just remember that. And the evidence of the success of this approach is absolutely overwhelming. We have so many people that have had success, so many testimonials. It's almost like some people disbelieve because they have never seen proof of their faith. Others disbelieve because they've seen too much proof of their faith. That's what we have here. Everywhere it's applied, it works. So apply it, learn it. Don't try to modify it. Apply it, learn it, take it to your conversations, and then come back and tell us about all of the magnificent successes that you end up having. Jonash says, Czech Republic, richest man, died in a helicopter crash in Alaska on Saturday. Very sorry to hear that. 6 other people in the helicopter. The only survivor is a snowboarder. So very sorry to hear all of those people who died in that accident, and our hearts go out to their loved ones. And let's see, I'm going to jump down through here. And Son of the South, can one fly a rebel flag in service to White Wellbeing? And I live in a small town in Missouri, and we all fly the Confederate flag down here. Well, this is something that we've touched upon before. If you live in an area where everybody is a very proud Southerner, they know exactly what that flag means, and you are going to display it in a reverential way. You're not going to like strap it onto the back of your station wagon and go down the road or something disgusting like that. Then that's something different. That is the sort of reverence that I have referred to before when it comes to many of these different flags and symbols and etc. So if you're someplace and you have your pride, you know what the flag means as a Southerner, and there are many others who know, the vast majority know what the flag means. But if you were going, then go ahead and fly it. But if you were going to say go out and have a protest somewhere for white well-being, do not take the Confederate flag. It does not mean anything that you think it means. It is like taking it out to an environment like that is like giving it to the most vicious anti-whites you can imagine, and then they take it and they put it into the stall with pigs, and they do horrible things that I'm not even going to say with it. So do not use it in those scenarios. It means something very different in the anti-white narrative, and that is how it will be received by our brothers and sisters. So where is the anti-white narrative? Ladies and gentlemen, it is in the heads of the vagues, the people who we are trying to help to go free. That is why we have to speak in the language of heroes, the language that we are, and that's how we move forward.
Yeah, I'll just quickly add, Jason is right about context. It depends on your area. This is what I meant earlier when I said y'all can teach me a little bit, because where I'm from, I've certainly visited the South a lot, particularly as it so happens, no joke, as I told him this privately, Jason's state of Virginia. Took several family trips down there when I was a kid. My parents liked the state of Virginia a lot. And there's just a vibe to Virginia. There is a special place. You know, it might sound interesting, especially maybe to our European viewers, but, you know, the states here, even though America has become a little bit more of like a federal thing, there's a little more, each state was its own country back in the day, but the states still, of course, have their own cultures and their own feel. But having said that, you know, where I am, it doesn't mean the same thing. And even knowing what I know about the anti-white narrative, not being Southern myself, I don't really get it. I admit I don't get some of it. I don't really get the flag. I don't get the South will rise again thing. So when we see it in the North, we're like, all right, like I'm not against it, but it
It's
doesn't
not an
really,
easy thing to explain. It's something
I
that,
think you have to be there to get it. Yeah.
yeah. Well, I hope you do one day. You can come down. You can come up and
I've been.
You can have a no.
I've
I mean,
been
come
in
down
the
and be
South,
with me.
plenty,
You can
and
walk up on the mount with me. We'll have a dual sermon.
I've been
I've
in Tennessee. Tennessee is a beautiful state too. I told you, I drove across the whole state with friends, and it's a gorgeous state. Gorgeous state. I actually had a Velvet Elvis at Graceland, and I owe Carlisle an explanation about some of what that means. And I'll tell you after the show.
Sure.
But no, Tennessee's beautiful. I've visited the South many times. But if you're not from there, there's just something you're not going to get about that. And I admit it. I don't really get it. So,
well, if you ever want to come down here
if
and
you flew the Confederate flag in some parts of New England, we'd be like, what? All right. And a lot of people were going to be like, no, they're gonna see that as a symbol of something else.
Yeah, it's the anti-white narrative. Remember, everybody, as we wrap up here today, we got another $2 financial gift from Machiavelli saying that the white race needs their own banks. That's a wonderful wish, but it's also called counterfeiting, and you get killed for that in pretty much anywhere around the world, because since money has conquered religion a very long time ago, those who hold the power to print it act swiftly with those who try to take that power away from them. But it's been a magnificent, absolutely magnificent tap today. Could not have asked for more with Yizz and how wonderful she is and her activism.
You're too kind, Jason.
Well, no, it's absolutely. This is the way we need to be, and this is the only place where success has been achieved here, and it will continue. And when we talk about success, we're talking about and this is the point I was going to make, our story. The story that everybody is living by around you, the vagues, is one created by fiction, which the part of their brain that is responsible for the majority of their life, the subconscious, does not know the difference between fiction and reality. And so they are living in a fiction when they see, whether it's up north or anywhere down south, almost, when they see a Confederate flag, for example, even though they have never actually witnessed a bunch of guys hop out of a pickup truck flying Confederate flags and just hugging their victims to death, even though they've never actually seen that, they think that happens everywhere. They think that that's just going on all day long, because for them it actually is. It's a fiction that's in their head, that the biggest part of the part of their brain that they live their life by doesn't know the difference between that fiction and reality. So we need to accept that truth, and we need to speak to them as the heroes we are and bring them over to going free, rather than, and this is the metric that we measure this by. Are we improving people's lives? Are we helping people to go free? Are we improving families? Are we starting families as a consequence? We are doing, and in the numerous ways, the manifold ways that we are improving people's lives. This is the metric by which we gauge our success. We don't gauge our success by whether or not, by behaving as one of the villains or whatever have you, we mop up the fringe dwelling members of society who already agree with the crazy ideas, and you get them to join Group A for 6 months, and then the same people, Group B next month. I mean, for God's sakes, you can look at the names of these groups. I've been doing it for 2 decades. The membership roles, the leadership roles, and they just go from one set of clothing to the next every 18 months or 28 months or so. It's really silly. That is not what we gauge success by. And so we're going to continue having success. and wish everybody else well. But this was a magnificent, absolutely glorious time today with Yizz. Yizz, I would like for you to give everybody your final thoughts and
Sure.
where they can find you on these different platforms one more time so that
Sure.
they can imbibe your content.
My moniker, Yizz the Eunuch. You can find me on BitChute, even though I've had trouble uploading over there. Of course, on YouTube. You can find me on Library Odyssey. That's as soon as they get live streaming over there, I'm going to rapidly start probably making that my main site. You can find me all across social media, Minds, Gab, Telegram, all by the same name. Tonight, I'm doing a fun, laid-back stream. Speaking of the MAGA Patriot types, I have a fun stream tonight where we're just going to shoot the breeze and have a good time building community with Don the Pleb, All Minus One, Bill, Tank from the Ends Justify the Memes. And you can find that on All Minus One, the Ends Justify the Memes, MEMES, on both DLive and on YouTube. And as soon as we're done here, I'm going to have to hop over to a different StreamYard link and start doing more community streaming with other people. And that's what
awesome.
I do. Is I like to take truth and positivity and spread the lexicon in my natural habitat, which is communicating with others and having a good time. So
Amen.
I encourage all of you to be like me, emulate Jared George, emulate Jason. Take what we know to be true and effective and apply it with the right Kung Fu skills to the communication in your life with all the people that you communicate with. And if there's one thing I want everybody to remember is be inspired. You are not alone. Speak the truth with conviction and you get results. Mm-hmm. Go do it now. Do it every day. It works for me. It'll work for you.
Amen. Mr. George.
Well, if you just haven't had enough of Yizz and you missed what I said in the beginning, she's actually going to be, as it turns out, no, she didn't pay us. This isn't some media blitz. It just worked out this way. I've had Yizz on my mind, I'm checking her material out, talking to her. You're hot right now. And while you're on my mind and while these things are floating around, I said, you and your co-host are actually going to be joining me and John Bruce Leonard on our show, Learning in Public, tomorrow. And those shows go where they will, very organic conversation. But we are going to focus on your co-host, Kizza, from the UK, bringing engineering background to bear on this mirror of veritas concept that he is developing about more accountability, more liability for people who are thought leaders, teachers, people who are affecting discourse, and politicians who are affecting policy. And I think that's going to square interestingly with John's knowledge, of course, my co-host John Bruce Leonard, with his knowledge of justice and virtue in the ancient world. Because he knows a lot about ancient philosophy. So I definitely want to get those two talking. But both of you are going to be on, and it should be a very lively, interesting conversation. That is at 12 noon Eastern, which is 5 o'clock in the UK. We are back to the point where both continents are now on daylight time. So we're back where Eastern United States is 5 hours behind the UK. That's where we're at. So if you're around tomorrow, please check us out. Of course, our show here, The After Party, all of these are backed up on the afterparty.tv. Jason and I have some other material there for you as well, but bookmark that, join our mailing list. If you're listening in the replay, Yizz's links will be there. My own site is thegreatorder.com. So my activity on this show, my activity with John on Learning in Public, which I just mentioned, and all the other things I do, the creative work, all go through there, how to contact me, where to follow. So bookmark that page as well, thegreatorder.com. Thank you, everyone, for another amazing show. And thank you, Yizz, your first time on tap, a momentous occasion. And we'll see you all soon. Jason, please take us out.
Yes, indeed. So we can all jump over to watch Yizz on her channel as soon as she gets rolling. I want to give a big thank you to everybody who participated in the live chat today. Hello to everybody who is brand new to Going Free and the work that we are doing here. You're welcome to ask questions, engage with folks. We are very friendly, so please do so. Big thank you to everybody who financially gifted over the course of the stream today as well. And a thank you to our moderators, Brant Danger and Roy Danton, for their magnificent job moderating, as always, keeping things as pristine as they can be. And I want to say, just because this is happening right now here in DC, where I am, right in Virginia, right outside of Washington, DC, we just had a Capitol Police officer murdered. And I believe his name was Williams. Maybe it was Williams Evans. So our hearts go out to that individual and his family. We hope that they recover soon from their great loss. But it was a magnificent time, folks. Make sure you get over to see Yizz, and we look forward to seeing you all again next time.